welcome to the Utah Puck Report. It's me, your host, Jay Stevens. Happy to be here, happy to be with you. And I want to thank my sponsor who makes all of this possible, Larry H. Miller Toyota in Murray. Right now, you can lease a 2025 RAV4 all-wheel drive for $249 a month for 36 months. And that's a pretty good deal. You know, in case the weather gets a little crazy, you always want that all-wheel drive. And yeah, thanks for Larry H. Miller Toyota in Murray. Go check him out, or you can check him out online at larryhmillertoyota.com. Today's guest, man, you're basically becoming my co-host since you came back. I keep asking you to come on the show because I love picking your brain, and you have so much knowledge to give. It's Adrian Denny from the Utah Mammoth. Adrian, thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me, Jay. I always love coming on with you. So keep calling, please.
Well, I'm gonna keep doing that, so you're gonna regret saying it. Um, what a summer so far. And the Mammoth have made some changes. They did the draft. You guys have had Mammoth Week going on, so I know it's also pretty rude of me to pick on you during
No,
this
it's
week.
Mammoth Week. It's all encompassing.
Perfect.
Everything Mammoth
I
is
love it.
good to go for Mammoth Week.
I love it, but man, you guys are busy. Let's just start with Mammoth Week. Man, you've been out. I saw you Conwood Heights yesterday, Park City, Cedar City. Tell us a little bit about the events. What have you seen that's been a lot of fun on your end?
We're having an absolute blast. I know it each city that we go to, it's the same thing over and over again, but it's just as fun as it was in Park City Tuesday, in Provo Monday, in Logan Saturday. And Jay, what strikes me when we're out at our mobile fan fests is everybody is a fan. Everybody knows about the team. Everybody knows what happened in year one. Everybody listened or watched or had season tickets or had a half season plan or did a little of everything. And we're getting season ticket members. We're getting folks who are just driving by and seeing something happening at the Cottonwood Heights Rec Center and they pull off to check it out and see what's up. So that's what really strikes with me is how in tune with the Mammoth every single person is that shows up. They knew that it was Clayton Keller's birthday on Tuesday, right? Like it's not like, hey, let us tell you about us. They know about us and they want to talk about it. And that's what makes it so cool of everything that's happened just during the course of the year. And as the broadcast team, we're all just tickled to be there because we meet so many people that especially on the radio that I interact with all season long on Hockey Night in Utah on our post game and so being able to meet the people that I see their Twitter handles, I see their names, it's and get a picture, it's been so cool and yesterday I met a couple and they said they listened and I recognize their names and the husband says, "Yep, I'm tweeting at you. She's driving." I said, "So she's honking the horn for 2 points." And so they had that all organized, but it's been so fun to see the folks that we interact with all season long and have all night to talk with them. There's no oh gosh, I got to get back to the press box. I got to get back up to our radio studio because it's post game, right? We've got the time to interact and talk and deep dive, and we've talked about everything, and it's been so fun. And I've been kind of I've been running the photo booth. We've got twinning with Tanev,
I saw that. Yeah.
which is a Polaroid cutout of Brandon Tanev's famous headshot, one of them. So I've been running that. We've got cutouts with Cooley, Keller, and Vamelka in. We can do family of three. We've got our backdrop. We can take a picture of a family. So that's what I've been doing. Mike Folta has been at the accuracy shooting booth. He's been evaluating talent and coaching and running all that and helping everybody with the accuracy of their shot. Sarah Merrifield, our rinkside reporter on television, has been at the Mammoth Sweepstakes booth, meeting and greeting and answering questions. And every single person that comes by seems like they want to see if Sarah's there. So that's been fun to direct him. So it's just been awesome. And that's just what's going on outside. Inside, we've had hockey instruction clinics going on with kids of all ages. Tyson Nash has been a big part of that. Nick Olczyk too. So it's been all hands on deck. It's been so much fun, and it's been great to see everybody. And we've got three left here on the day we're recording. We'll be in Ogden, Enoch, which is by Cedar City here. It's a great new rink there. I have not been, but I've heard unbelievable stuff about it, and folks are excited about that. And then we've got Sunday in St. George, and Clayton Keller is going to join us for, I'm sorry, Saturday in St. George, and Clayton Keller is going to be joining us for that one. So excited to hit the southern part of the state after we knock out a great night in Ogden.
Yeah, the whole thing's been amazing to watch. The one thing that's been killing me as a goalie is watching everybody put on Veggie's pads from last
Oh
year, even his
gosh.
spares, and just it's one thing that they put them on backwards. I can get over that. It's the other thing that those are $2,500 leg pads that they're just putting on, and I get it, but as a goalie, I'm like, oh, that is such a nice piece of equipment to just use on the street like that. It's almost sacrilegious for a goalie like me. But it's fun to see everybody get geared up. It's fun to see everybody realize what those pads are, and everybody's participating. And yeah, I was for the fire department, I was in some of the Days of 47 parades and stuff. And it just kind of blew my mind looking out the engine and seeing how many people were wearing mammoth stuff, not even Utah Hockey Club stuff from last year. And there was a lot of that too. A lot of the hats were still Utah Hockey Club, but mammoth stuff, which means in the last couple months, people have gone out and restocked on brand new gear, and they're wearing it daily. And on the fire department, I got people saying, like, we'll go to a training and a bunch of firefighters will come up and they'll say, hey, this is unreal. Like, I wasn't really a hockey fan before, but the Mammoth, they're just so exciting, and I'm in. Like, they're buying season tickets and they're buying game packages, and they're stringing up antenna at the firehouses so that we can get the games on that, on that other channel. It's not us. But anyway, yeah,
SCG plus, Jay.
SCG
SCG
plus is
plus.
that's the best way to go, is what I keep saying.
Do you know what? It's interesting you bring that up about Utah Hockey Club, Utah Mammoth gear, because gosh, it's only been 2.5 months, and I gotta say that the Mammoth gear it's out in full force. It's amazing the amount of people that have been able to get their Tuss Up gear in the last 2.5 months. And that's, you know, keeping it in stock isn't easy either down at the team store and online. And so you've had over a year to get Utah Hockey Club stuff, but the Mammoth stuff's about ready to surpass it. And I see it too when I'm out and about. And going back to the goalie gear stuff, Jay, you would be really, really proud of me because I've been able to help some folks get into the goalie gear. And I say, I'm no expert, but put the pads down, glide into them, just kind of fall into them right there. I'll strap you up. And you know why, Jay? It's because when I was at the Grizzlies for years and years and years and years, and we were doing morning news hits on opening night and for Pink in the Rink and for Guns and Hoses, Military Appreciation Night, and we'd have all the news reporters come down. They all wanted to get in goalie gear. So we'd have the time window between the 6:25 segment and the 6:45 segment to get them in goalie gear, and I was the staff member on hand to be able to show them how to do it and strap them in and get them ready. So you
That's
you
funny. I
you'd be
I remember
proud.
doing one of those with you, and I think it was, I can't remember what TV station was there, but their reporter was the girl that was she took like second place in Survivor,
Was it
and then
Caitlin Burchell? I
yeah,
think
I'm so bad with
he
names
was
if
at
they're not
KSL,
hockey.
so that'd be good.
But she came in and we're like, well, we'll just throw. I was e-bugging, and we're like, well, we're gonna put her out, and we'll just put her in my gear. And I remember her just putting on the chest pad, going, I like she was gonna vomit from the ammonia smell that comes
Hmm.
off goalie gear. just because of the way it is. And it's an honor that it was my gear that stunk so bad. It's like smelling salt, and it also is like the worst smell you've ever had. But and for people that don't know, I think that kind of sums it up.
Good for them. Good
Yeah,
for them if they don't know.
yeah, good for you if you don't know what hockey gear smells like. But then at the same time, get in some gear, know what it smells like, enjoy the game. It's
Yeah,
fun to watch, but it's so much more fun to play.
yeah, and to have the authentic game gear is just
So
another
crazy.
something that just doesn't happen every
Yeah.
day.
I would have tipped it. I would have, you know, got into my retirement fund to buy some of that gear just to use it. So I'm glad that they just gave it away. My wife's probably glad that you guys didn't sell it. Um, so let's talk about some of the moves the Mammoth made, and starting right off with, and I think you and I have already talked a little bit about Paterka, but just talking about one, it seemed like giving up Doan, giving up Kess, it was a big move, but getting a guy that already has a 55 goal season. Um, talk about talk about that trade and what you think that did for the team, and we'll just start with that one because we got a couple other big free agent things to talk about.
It instantly made Utah one of the top 5 teams in the NHL in offseason moves because you get the score, you get the goal scorer that you wanted, you get the goal scorer that we were talking for 10 months about the guys that were out there, and that went pretty fast. And there was only a few, and so you go out and it benefits you 2 ways. So you make the trade to get Paterka, which is somebody that you weren't going to get that caliber on the free agent market. So number one, so you make that trade and you give up two good players, 2 good guys, Michael Kesselring and Josh Doan, and Bill Armstrong said it. Like these were homegrown kids that we developed and got to the NHL, and it wasn't easy to call them up and tell them about it. But from the business standpoint, so big to be able to make that trade because you couldn't assign the guys. But what it does, Jay, is it also keeps your salary cap in line with 2 players for 1 player. And by not going out and having to make a huge free agent swing to get the player that you wanted to be a goal scorer, you keep your salary cap level, and it evens up from an accounting standpoint because we've talked about so much. You go out, you get your big money player, all of a sudden you don't have as much for re-signing guys that are on your current roster right now that are real big core guys. So that's big because wasn't somebody on the free agent market like that, and we kept our cap space equal.
Yeah, I think it's two things for me. The salary cap thing was a big thing, and like you said, giving 2 for 1 and then signing him, for a long term, that's huge for us. And I got to tell you, and I hate to admit it, just like I have to admit it when I talk about some of the Arizona stuff, because I didn't watch Arizona and I sure didn't watch Buffalo. Like I had a friend that played for Buffalo a while ago.
They're hard to watch.
Yeah, they are hard to
They play
watch.
at 5 o'clock. They're never on national TV. There's always other games on that you're going to watch before you turn on Buffalo, who's missed the playoffs for 14 straight years. So
Yeah,
I think for all of us, it turned into a JJ Paterka cram session that night that the trade was made.
yeah. I had to Google him. And like when the trade first came up, and they're like, I saw it, and I'm like, that's a steep price to pay for somebody. This has got to be somebody big. So I had to Google him. And then I'm like, yeah, I'm impressed. And then I immediately look at our record. And I think we had like 13 losses in overtime. And you bring in a guy like Paterka, I think that turns those 13 losses. I think that one, it prevents us from going to that overtime session. And two, it helps us win that OT session if we get there again. A guy
Well,
like
that's a
that just adds that firepower, right?
yeah, and that's a playoff spot, and
Yeah.
that's moving up a seed or two. So really big, and so you give up 2 core guys that were just big pieces of your culture, and you bring in Paterka and JJ when he was meeting the media in Salt Lake on that Zoom call on the 4th of July mentioned a couple prospects that he knew and he played with over in Germany where he's from, and Artem Duda and Maximilian Zuber, two defensemen down in Tucson. And so the first thing I think, knowing Maxi Zuber, he's the nicest guy you'll ever meet. And Maxi's friends are good people because, he's the type of guy that hangs around good people that are like him, that work hard and are outgoing and friendly. And so that gave me a vision into the personal side of JJ Peterka, knowing that he's friends with Maxi Zuber. So that's a plus. Here's another plus to that. Maxi Zuber's roommates in Tucson were Michael Kesselring and Josh Doan.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to compare, okay, you lose those two guys. On the right side, his US friends, but on the left side, his German friend is JJ Peterka. I think that completely covers the character assessment there for JJ Peterka to go along with his skill.
Um, do you think who are these players that we think might make the roster this year that are in Tucson? Do you have guys that you're like, this is the year? Because you know Tucson better than anybody.
Well, let's start with this because this is what I think, Jay. I think everybody on the roster outside of Clayton Keller is going to have to come to training camp and be better than they were last year.
Oh,
Or that means dropping down a line, dropping down a power play unit, dropping down to the American Hockey League. There's um there's roster spots that the guys that were in the NHL last year I think are going to be battling for. So with that depth, I think as we've talked about, Dmitry Simashev and Daniil Boot are the two guys in training camp that weren't in the NHL last year. They were in the KHL, which is a really good pro league, second or third best in the world. I think those are your two rookies battling for spots. That being said, we heard Cole Beaudoin at development camp, and we heard Caleb Denoyer at development camp say they wanted to make the roster this year and they
yeah.
wanted to play in the NHL this year. And Beaudoin was in development camp last year, had a year to work as a Utah draftee and prospect, and he played in preseason games last year for Utah. So we'll see what those two guys bring. So it's going to be uh ridiculously competitive training camp for Utah. And I don't, there's not a lot of spots that are available.
Yeah, I love it. When we talked about Simashev and Boot coming in at first, it was just assumed they were going to make the team basically. And then with the off-season moves, and Baudouin is amazing. Like to me, he's such a pit bull on the ice. I love the way he plays, and it just kills me that maybe we didn't know that rule change was coming in,
Oh,
and
yeah.
we signed him to that pro contract, and that makes him ineligible for the NCAA. And because that's a kid that could have really benefited from not signing that pro contract, coming in, giving it his all this year. And if he didn't make it, he just goes to Vermont or the University of North Dakota or, a big program, Michigan. I mean, there's 1,000 really good programs you could mention, but he could develop more, but he can't as a 19-year-old, right? He's not going to be 20 in time because this is his second year,
Yeah.
right? So he won't be
Right.
20 in
Yeah.
time. He'll have to, if he doesn't make the team, he has to go back to the Canadian League
Yeah.
juniors.
And 1 year behind the 26-27 collective bargaining agreement that would have allowed
Yeah.
him to play in the AHL. But yeah,
Just
we'll
kill.
see.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. A lot of people were really, really impressed with him at development camp and playing last year in the preseason games.
Yeah. I watched development camp as a guy that's coached 19 years and as a guy that's had to build teams. And so I know some of the media people were chirping our Cole Bagley because he was giving like updates on how players looked and stuff. But I was truly out there judging how these players looked, and I remembered what they looked like last year. And Baudouin, look, to me, he was obviously one of the best players out there. And the other kid that I keep bringing up is Allaire.
Yeah.
He just there's something about his game that I really like. And then Denoye, he looked like an NHL player. He truly did look like the skill set was there, and he's skinny, but I thought he looked like a guy that could play in the NHL this upcoming season. Again, I haven't coached at that level. I get that maybe that's hyperbole saying stuff about a guy out of dev camp, but those three players to me stood out. There was another player that was really standing out, but I can't remember his name right now. But just phenomenal. I thought dev camp was phenomenal. I thought it was way better than it was last year. I thought that you could see a better skill set, and it's amazing how many first round draft picks are out there, considering it's just supposed to be the last couple of years, right? So
Yeah,
it's
there was five. And
man, the Mammoth are deep.
just if you want to draw a comparison to Caleb Denoye, maybe to Dylan Gunther, who was drafted ninth overall, the timetable for Dylan when he was drafted in 2021 was NHL training camp, went back to juniors. Um, the next year, NHL training camp was on the roster for the first half of the season, and because of the AHL rule, where he couldn't play till he was the calendar year where he turned 20, went to juniors, was disappointed, but kept pushing, and then the third year started in the American Hockey League and played the second half in the NHL. So last year was Gunther's first full year in the NHL, but um, everybody's timeline's different, and but just to give the folks an idea of a first round hot shot and their timeline, that was Dylan Gunther's for instance, and we see him right now, 22 years old, starting an 8-year contract. So
Yeah, he phenomenal player. Another big addition that is making it hard for young guys to make the team this year was the signing of Nate Schmidt. And I was a Golden Knights fan when he was there. I got to see him play. I went to some games. Really like his game. Uh, St. Cloud State boy, just awesome to see his development. What do you think he brings to the team? Have you started thinking about who he lines up with best as a D pair?
no, I haven't, but what I see him as is a bonus. I don't think on July 1st, in my opinion, Utah was thinking about adding another defenseman. I think we felt pretty good about our depth, about what we had, and every single player. But all of a sudden, you get this opportunity to bring in this guy who just won a Stanley Cup, who's got the charisma that he has, and you can just
Yeah.
tell that that's just another guy like that in that locker room, like Ian Cole, like Mikhail Sergachev on that blue line. And it's just another winner. And we had him on our Nashcast podcast a couple weeks ago, and he talked about, even for him at 33, the stuff he learned being a first year member of the Florida Panthers coming off of that Stanley Cup championship that they won. And he said first preseason game, somebody comes up to him and says, "Hey, we don't do that here," about just the way he dumped in a puck or something like that. And he's like, "Holy smokes." So I think adding him is a bonus because he's a good D man, right? And
Absolutely, yeah.
but the character that he has, and winning that Stanley Cup championship, and he's a guy that gravitates to a place like this just because he's an outdoorsman and got a young family. So I think it was just a good fit, and you got a good contract and a good term out of it of 3 years. I think it was just like, okay, we got to do this.
Yeah. Yeah, phenomenal player. 19 points in 80 games. No, 30 points last year. No, 30 penalty minutes, sorry. 19 points and +4 last year, which is pretty good. He's been plus most of his career. I kind of wondered, and maybe it's just because they're both solid NCAA guys. I thought maybe he'd pair up best with Ian. Um,
Yeah.
Ian's a Ian's more of a stay home, battle in front defenseman, and Nate seems to be like a good uh, contrast to that. Like they'd pair up equally. I think. I think he's quick to break the pucks out and does a good defensive job. A little more offensive minded. But anyway, I just thought they'd pair up pretty nice. And but speaking of bringing somebody in from the Stanley Cup champions, we also got Vitek Vanacek, who we got to see play last year, and I pretty impressed by that move. And obviously, we want the best for Ingram. We don't know what's going on with him. I think it solves the problem or the gap that could have been there. It also makes it highly competitive for our goaltenders again, right? Because now you've got two goalies down in the A that we're fighting and we're looking like real NHL prospects. But now you have three goalies with NHL experience. Somebody else is going to have to go down.
I think it's great, and it's also a great strategic move from an acquisition standpoint because gosh, I mean, three NHL goalies on one roster. Uh, Bill Armstrong and his management team and coaching staff, they love internal competition. They 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 love guys going to battle it out in training camp and in practice. And Jay, if you get to a point that you've got three healthy NHL goalies and two goalies in the AHL who started games in the NHL last year, how much have we heard this offseason about teams that are not deep in goaltending, Edmonton,
Yeah.
and who knows where they get? And it gives you good contracts that what's the best move at the time. And you see what I'm saying here? Like you,
Oh
you
yeah.
got you got five NHL goalies and you're approaching the trade deadline and you see a need you want. It's another asset that 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 you have that you can use to make yourself better. So adding the depth, but always the look ahead of we can get to February and March and you know,
Yeah.
use every asset we have in the bank, on the roster, in the system to make ourselves better. So it's just an added piece right there, regardless of how it transpires.
Yeah, it's a baited hook that just whenever we need it, we can drop it into the water and see what kind of other fish we can come up with for sure. Um, and that, yeah, again, that was a big move. It was something we were pretty excited about seeing.
A guy that
And
won 32 games in
yeah,
the NHL with New Jersey. So he's good. He's also from Krova Melka's homeland, a
yeah,
fellow Czech. So he's gonna be fun. We saw him staring down gosh, was it Pickard or Stuart Skinner in
Skinner.
the final? Yeah,
Yeah,
Stuart
so
Skinner.
funny.
Yeah, he doing
That
his
was a,
part, man. The
yep.
backup goalie.
That was a pretty funny thing to see. Um, yeah, it cracked me up pretty good. And he seems to have a good sense of humor, and that puts three checks in net for us, or prospect wise too. When you think
Oh yeah.
about the goalie of the future, I think is Robble. Like
Yeah.
obviously Veggie's going to be our guy, and I think Veggie had his breakout last year, and I really look forward to seeing um, him and his starting role as he knows it's his. I want to see him own it this year. I think that gives you more confidence going into camp. And then talk about seeing him play. Have you seen his new gear?
Oh gosh, it's amazing. Like Veggie Veggie goes about his business, but he's always in the back of his head. He's one way or another doing stuff to engage with the fans, right? Giving his stick to Broccoli Brandon and the veggie chants and Delta Center and how much he loved that, and then his Utah themed dinosaur mask from last year. And little did we know, but Veggie was foreshadowing our next prehistoric move of adding the mammoth to our identity. And then he comes out with those sick pads, blocker and glove this week. Or I guess he didn't, Jay. It's always the company that makes them that seems to leak that out, which is fine with us in the middle of the summer.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about I didn't think about that. Like, does Brian's need permission, or are they just allowed to show your pads. I never thought about that because
Yeah,
the mask.
is it just like a text? Can we put this on Instagram? Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I wonder, do
Who's
they
involved?
do they clear to the team? Do they clear to the NHL, or do they
Yeah.
just clear it through the goalie?
Yeah. Who's
Be-
involved?
Because the mask painter, there's a couple big mask painters, and when they're done with the mask, they drop it too, for the most part. But
Uh-huh.
um, there are some that don't allow their masks to be shown until game night. So I wonder how that works. But big shout out to Brian's because, and I want to make this known. That's not silk screened on those pads. That, like, a lot of companies now will do the sublimation or whatever where it's already in the pad material. That is cut and sewn on those pads, and it's meticulous. And I'm plugging them. This is a free plug for Brian's, and I've worn them since I was 15 years old. Except for when I was playing in that professional roller hockey league, I had to wear Franklin for a minute. But I've been a Brian's guy from day one, and their equipment is phenomenal. And you're right. I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if the artists at Brian's asked Veggie if it was okay to do something like that. And now I can't wait to see his mask.
Oh yeah.
What do you think it's gonna just something big with a mammoth? Do you think he keeps something
I
else?
think I th I th- I have no idea, right? I'm not involved in designing masks, but I have to think, knowing what he came out with last year and seeing the pads, that he's gonna take it take it creatively in the mammoth direction, but it's gonna be something we have no idea what's coming.
Yeah.
And
Um,
it can create another newsmaker story for us hopefully soon.
I can't remember who paints his mask. I think I think it is the guy out of Europe though. I think it oh, now I'm forgetting the guy's name. The main mask painter. I think it's the same guy. Let's talk about Tanev for a second, and then we'll wrap this up. But the other big push, you're talking about the fun. Uh, he's just a character, and you see his program, his profile picture, and that's been fun to play with the fans and see if they can mimic the look. I saw Chris Armstrong do it.
He
Uh,
did, yeah.
Tell me what else you think Tanev brings besides just being a great fan favorite.
Winning pedigree. He's been in the playoffs in 6 of his 8 NHL seasons, and he's played in 59 games. So that's about 10 games every time he makes the playoffs. So he's been on teams that have not only made the playoffs, but won in the playoffs. And he's got the 3-year deal. And I I didn't know going into July 1st who we were gonna get like this, but Tanev was one of the guys I was wondering about. And it just kind of goes along with the theme, the winning background, the way he plays, the energy, physicality, the way his personality resonates in the locker room. And gosh, Jay, like literally every guy that's been added this summer, Schmidt, Paterka, Tanev, you're listening to him talk and you're like, this guy wasn't in our locker room last year, but he could have been in that stall, right next to Ian Cole or Oli Mata or Nick DeSimone, because he just sounds like a Utah NHLer, and the pedigree and culture is just so big, right? It's one of the things Bill says is I love when he says this because it's just so baited. Teams that win in the summer don't always win in the winter. That we've heard that rendition of a
Yep.
couple times, but because it's so much about just being strategic and surgical and what fits here and what move makes sense, and Tanev hit it out of the park when we talked to him on the media availability Zoom, and then we hear from Ian or Nate Schmidt a couple days later, and it's like, holy cow, these guys are just going to be perfect, and they're going to help. And I know last year we could have used maybe a little more sandpaper, if you will, been a little more prickly at times, had a couple more guys to stick up with our skill guys or have on the bench in game. And He's gritty. He'll be in front of the net, tap something home, and yeah, I love I because we had the prototype of what we wanted, and then to see his headshot pop up, that was awesome.
Yeah, what a great fit. And that's the thing is, I know player wise he's a great fit. I know skill wise he's a great fit. I don't know anything about him, well, except for I was in on that interview you're talking about. So I didn't know that much about him as a locker room guy. And that's the dangerous part, right? You've got such a great thing. And I wish there was a way, like I try to say it all the time, the chemistry and the culture that's in that locker room. I wish there was a way for us as media to talk about that more. But you're adding Sandpaper, but you're also adding Sandpaper, who last year, um, let's, he only had in the NHL last year 22 penalty minutes. So he's not just going out and dummying plays either. Like he's out there being physical, but staying on the right side of the line, so he's not hurting the team either. And that's pretty impressive because you know that what's expected of him is physicality.
That's huge, Jay. And the other thing I'd like to see, which you don't see unless you really dig into the numbers. So you just gave his penalty minute total, which is equivalent to, gosh, I don't know, but a guy that doesn't take penalties, first of all. But how many penalties did he draw by, kind of agitating and then getting, you know, sticked in the gut or something like that?
Yeah, it's great. And man, people are gonna fry me for this, but this is what you're seeing with Kachuk now. He's developing into the guy that's not always taking the penalty. And I know he took a lot of penalties, but he is the guy that's drawing a lot of penalties. Trevor Lewis is amazing at it too. Trevor Lewis just goes out and hits everything. He's hard on the puck, and guys cheap shot him because of it, and he draws penalties. It's an amazing asset to have. You can make a whole
Yeah.
NHL career out of just that.
Corey Perry is another
Oh
one of my
yeah.
favorites like that. And you just look at, I mean, just want to just say something, or I don't know. I'm not going to say it on the podcast what you think when you're playing up against what I imagine to be Corey Perry. But yeah,
or Marchand. And Marchand
yeah,
did
yeah.
exactly what he was supposed to do for Florida when he got there. He played. I have not liked Marchand as a player at all ever until this year because I thought he went too far. I thought he did draw a lot of penalties, but I thought he took too many. And the ones he was sometimes he was dangerous to players' actual health. And this year I saw a guy that was like, I get the role, I'm going to play the role, and I'm not going to take stupid penalties. It looked like a way more mature Marchand. That's the kind of player you need that can go in and get in your face and not do it to the like. If he can get a penalty out of you, he's done his job.
Yeah, it's big. And that was a great point by you on Tanev's total penalty minutes because I hadn't noticed that, but gosh, like that's he had to draw double that at
Yeah,
least in
absolutely.
in power plays, which is, you talk about one goal games, you talk about not going to overtime because you got a power play goal. That's another big thing.
Yeah. So, and I'll just tell you one more thing. Looking at his stats right now, the most penalty minutes he's had in a season in the NHL was 35, and that's out of 82 games. Um, Second highest of that was 25 with 68 games. So, and even looking back at juniors, not a lot of penalty minutes, a lot of points. I mean, average points 14. Like he seems to be like a 15 point a year guy. But yeah, you add these moves that we've made, uh, and it just if there was a way to figure this out, I think that definitely equates to more wins, more points, less overtime losses, and it truly makes me believe that what we had last year is greatly improved this year to the point where we should be expected to make playoffs.
And as I talked about the training camp being competitive and everybody needs to be better than they were last year, other than Clayton Keller, as a team, just got to double down because last year teams started to take notice of Utah and they weren't seeing the backup goalie every night. And teams weren't coming in on the first ends of back to backs on their way to Vegas and taking a night off, right? They realized they had to play hard to beat Utah. And I think this year it goes to another level. And the fact that the expectation is playoffs and we know how close we were last year. So just got to totally double down and and keep pushing and individually and as a team and not settle for anything and not get comfortable whatsoever in knowing we've got this roster this year compared to last year with the injuries and how close that we got, but it, double down, I think, has got to be what the message is, you know, for the team this year with the additional talent added, and then just the how close they were last year because nothing comes easy in the NHL.
Well, and that gives us, if we do have injuries, that gives us the opportunity to pull up NHL experienced guys out of the A too, so that that depth helps us through all of it. So yeah, some guys are going to make the roster, some guys are not going to make the roster, but those guys are going to be ready for when injuries happen. Which in 82 games of an NHL physical season, injuries are going to happen. So
Yeah,
it
Bill
just
said several times this summer, seventh defenseman in the NHL plays 55 games. So
yeah,
not in the lineup opening night, but you'll see him 55 in the next 81 by percentage.
and we definitely saw that last year, and it's been so much fun to watch Bill. Like. Uh, Without sounding too negative about what he must have been going through in Arizona, it's just fun to see him with just be able to do the things he wants to do to make the team better all the time, knowing that he's got the backing of ownership, knowing he can spend a little money, knowing we're not going to have to trade guys because they get too good and want too much money. It's just gotta be such a relief for him to just show what he really can do because he's just been amazing so far.
He came to the NHL as a general manager with a blueprint, and it was his plan, and he hired his people, and he's not deviated from it 1 centimeter. So this is the result of that. So you got to admire that because you see so many teams, we're rebuilding, and are you not rebuilding anymore? What are you doing over here? And the plan and the message just changes from year to year. And with Bill, he's had a plan to be sustainable and be a contending team over a decade from the first year, and it took time and it took patience and a lot of frustration, I'm sure, and a lot of perseverance, but it's paying off, and everything that he's done during the 5 years that he's been a general manager, going back to September 2020, has been something that has paid off.
Yeah, for sure,
All
for
the
sure.
all the pain, all the when he's trading players for draft picks and creating cap space and acting as a banker as a third party on deals, it all mattered, and right now we get that to the next level.
Yeah, a lot of fun. It makes it all exciting. It makes me more excited to see what's going to happen with the Mammoth this season. I'm going to go on record right now and say that I think the Mammoth make the playoffs, and I think they're not in the last seed to make playoffs. That's my educated guess.
Sounds good to me. I agree. I
Perfect.
agree. Yeah, I agree.
All right, Adrian. I know you have a lot of things to get out and do. Go have some fun in Ogden tonight. I can't thank you enough for being on the show and sharing your wisdom and your insider knowledge with us.
Oh, my
And
pleasure. Anytime, Jay. Call anytime. I'll be here, buddy.
all right. Well, I'm planning on a lot of pregame stuff this upcoming season.
Can't wait. Can't wait.
All right. And that is the Utah Puck Report.